I should have known something was wrong the moment my husband got excited about the new neighbor.
Not curious, not politely interested.
Excited in a way that felt charged. The house next door had been sitting empty for almost a year. White siding fading, lawn overgrown, for sale sign tilting like it had given up. Then one afternoon, while I was still at work, the sign disappeared. When I came home around 6, he was practically vibrating. "They moved in," he said, eyes bright. Finally. I set my bag down slowly. "Already? You didn't even meet them." "He came over while you were gone," my husband said too quickly. "Super nice, friendly, the kind of neighbor you hope for." Something in my chest tightened. "What's his name?" I asked. There it was, the pause. Not long, just half a second, but enough. I didn't catch it," he said, waving it off. "But he's great." People always catch names, especially when they're excited. That was the first crack. The second came 2 nights later. It was late, dark enough that the backyard lights cast long shadows across the fence. I was taking the trash out when I saw my husband standing by the fence line, his silhouette frozen, posture tilted forward like he was listening. Then his hand slipped between the wooden slats. When he pulled it back, there was a folded piece of white paper between his fingers. My heart didn't race, it dropped. I stood there, breath shallow, trash bag heavy in my hand, watching him walk back inside like nothing had happened. Like we weren't married adults with a mortgage and 6 years of shared life behind us. Like we were teenagers passing notes in secret. I didn't confront him that night. I lay awake instead, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment I'd dismissed over the last month. His sudden interest in the backyard, the way he laughed at his phone, the way his voice softened when he talked about the new neighbor. By morning, one thought had settled deep and unmovable in my chest. The house next door didn't just sell itself. Someone wanted to live there. And whoever it was had already been invited into my marriage. When people ask how my husband and I met, I usually give them the easy version. College, mutual friends. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into years. What I don't say, what I didn't fully understand until much later, is how much of our relationship was built on timing, not certainty. We met when I was 25 and he was a year older. I was just starting to feel steady in my career, finally earning enough to stop counting every grocery item. He was charismatic in a quiet way, confident without being loud, charming without trying. The kind of man who listened more than he talked, which made you feel chosen when he did speak. Back then, he told me about his past like it was already sealed away. "There was someone before you," he said once, casually, while we were folding laundry in my tiny apartment. College stuff, intense but messy. We wanted different things. He didn't sound bitter. He didn't sound nostalgic. So I believed him. I didn't ask for details. I didn't feel the need to compete with a ghost. We built our life slowly. Sunday routines, shared calendars, arguments about paint colors. He proposed after 2 years with a simple ring and steady hands, no theatrics. I cried then, quietly, because it felt safe, because it felt chosen. Marriage didn't change him much. If anything, it softened the edges. He became more predictable, less restless, or so I thought. We bought our house 3 years ago, a standard suburban place with matching mailboxes and a backyard just big enough to justify a grill. White fence, 2-car garage, the kind of house you buy because you're planning to stay. He loved the backyard, loved the idea of grilling, of being that guy, the neighbor who offers beers over the fence, the husband who waves while flipping burgers. I loved the quiet, the sense that we'd arrived somewhere stable. Looking back, there were small things I ignored. The way he kept one old shoebox from college in the garage, taped shut, untouched. The way he got tense when certain songs came on the radio. The way he never quite laughed when I joked about exes. Nothing dramatic, nothing suspicious. Until the house next door sold. That's when the shift happened. Suddenly, he cared about things he never had before. What time the neighbor left for work. Whether the backyard lights were on. Whether the fence gaps were wide enough to fix someday. He started spending more time outside, not in a relaxed way, but alert, present, like he was waiting for something. I told myself I was imagining it. Men don't usually sneak. They don't pass notes through fences. They don't hide things with delicate precision. If something was wrong, I expected confrontation, distance, anger, not secrecy. That's what unsettled me the most. He wasn't cold, he wasn't cruel. He was careful, and care requires intention. The night I saw the note pass through the fence, I finally let myself ask the question I'd been avoiding since that first half-second pause when I asked for the neighbor's name. Who was he before me? That could make my husband act like this now. By the next afternoon, I had my answer. And once I saw the name on the screen, once I connected the neighbor to the man my husband had sworn was just a long time ago, everything we'd built together suddenly felt fragile. Not broken yet, but standing on a fault line I hadn't known was there. I didn't confront him right away. That surprised even me. Instead, I watched. Not in a dramatic, spying through the blinds way. Nothing reckless or emotional. I watch the way a woman does when something feels off, but she needs proof before she lets it touch her marriage. The next morning, I worked from home. Around 2 in the afternoon, I saw him step into the backyard with his coffee. He didn't sit, didn't relax. He stood near the fence, glanced left, then right. Subtle, but deliberate. Then his hand moved again. He folded something small, precise, and slid it through the gap between the boards. My stomach tightened, but my face stayed calm. I didn't storm outside. I didn't interrupt. I sat there, heart beating steadily, reminding myself that men don't usually play games like this unless they think they can control the outcome. That's when I decided to stop guessing. It took less than 30 minutes. The neighborhood Facebook group had already welcomed the new homeowner. One name, one profile picture, one smile I recognized immediately, even though I'd never met him in person. The ex. The one my husband had described as intense, messy, long over. The one whose photo I'd once found tucked inside a box under our bed 2 years into our marriage. The one he'd sworn he'd forgotten about. I stared at the screen, my pulse steady but heavy. Recent posts, fresh captions, new beginnings, clean slate. Excited for this next chapter. The house next door didn't randomly go to him. This wasn't coincidence. That night at dinner, I kept my voice light. "So," I said casually, cutting my food, "did you ever get the neighbor's name?" "Oh, yeah," he replied too fast. "It's Derek or David, something like that." I looked up. His name didn't start with a D. I met his eyes and smiled. "We should invite him over sometime." He hesitated. "Maybe. Let him get settled first." Translation, absolutely not. Over the next week, I documented everything. Dates, times, photos from the window when he stepped outside. I counted 3 more notes passed through the fence. One slipped and landed on our side. I picked it up with 2 fingers like it might burn. Tomorrow at 3, a small heart drawn at the bottom. No explanation could soften that. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. Instead, I called a friend from law school, a real estate attorney now. If I wanted to sell my house quickly, I asked, how fast could it happen? He laughed. That's a weird question. How fast? I repeated. Price it right? 48 hours, maybe less. And if my husband didn't want to sell? Pause. Both names on the deed? Yes. Then you'd need his signature, unless you had grounds to force the issue. I see, I said. Thanks. That weekend, I made my move. Saturday morning. Coffee on the patio. My husband was upstairs getting ready for his yoga class, something he'd only started after the neighbor moved in. I walked to the fence and knocked once. Hey, I said. Got a minute? He stepped out, tall, fit, familiar in a way that made my jaw tighten. You must be the wife, he said. That's me. I extended my hand through the fence. He shook it. So, I continued calmly, you and my husband go way back, right? His face drained of color. And in that moment, I knew. The silence told me everything the notes hadn't. He didn't answer right away. Men usually don't when they're cornered by a truth they hoped would stay buried. His mouth opened slightly, then closed again. His eyes flicked, not to me, but past me, toward my house. He started, then stopped. It was a long time ago. That's not what I asked, I said calmly. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't either. I asked if you and my husband knew each other from before. A breath left him, slow and resigned. Yes. There it was. No drama, no shouting, just confirmation. College? I asked. He nodded. We dated. I smiled, not because I found it amusing, but because smiling keeps control where it belongs. Funny coincidence, I said. You buying the house next door? He swallowed. I didn't know he lived here when I bought it. Of course, I replied. These things just happen. I didn't accuse him of anything else. Didn't threaten. Didn't warn. I thanked him for his honesty and walked back inside. My husband was coming down the stairs when I entered. Who were you talking to? He asked. Our neighbor, I said, setting my mug down. Small world. His shoulders stiffened. Recognized him from your old photos? I continued lightly. The ones you said you threw away, but actually just moved to the garage. His face went pale. I don't need explanations, I said before he could speak. I need answers about the notes. What notes? He shot back. Too fast, too sharp. The ones you've been passing through the fence like you're 16, I said. Found one yesterday, tomorrow at 3, with a heart, very subtle. The color rushed back into his face, red this time. You're spying on me? He said louder now. I'm documenting, I replied. There's a difference. He tried to pivot. Men do that when they're losing ground. Nothing's happened. We're just talking. Great, I said. Then you won't mind if we sell the house. His head snapped up. What? Fresh start, I continued evenly. Somewhere new, somewhere without fences. No, he said immediately. I love this house. That's interesting, I replied. You didn't seem nearly this attached to it before he moved in. The fight that followed wasn't explosive. It was exhausting. 3 hours of denial, deflection, and accusation. I was paranoid. I didn't trust him. I was overreacting. He was allowed to have a past. He was allowed to talk to whoever he wanted. What he never did, not once, was apologize for lying. Not for the half-second pause. Not for the fake name. Not for the notes. Finally, I laid it out. We sell, I said. Or I get a lawyer, and we figure out why you're secretly communicating with your ex behind my back. Your choice. He didn't call my bluff. 2 weeks later, the for sale sign went up. That's when the entitlement showed itself. He cried, not sobbing, not collapsing, but angry tears, frustration, loss of control. He called me heartless, told his mother I was financially abusing him by forcing him out of his dream home. She called me the next day. You can't just uproot his life like this, she said sharply. I can, I replied. It's my house too. If he wants to stay, he can buy out my half. Silence. We both knew he couldn't afford that. His friends called next. Said marriages have rough patches, that I was being dramatic. I asked each of them the same question. Would you be okay if your wife was secretly passing notes with her ex-boyfriend who moved in next door? That shut most of them up. I handled the sale logistics. He sulked. The realtor was right. We had multiple offers within days, 3 above asking. Then, Wednesday afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. Hi, a young woman's voice said. Is this about the house on Oakwood Drive? Yes, I replied cautiously. My name's Ashley, she continued. I'm very interested, but I had a few questions about the neighborhood. Something in her tone made my spine straighten. What kind of questions? Well, she said carefully, the man who owns the house next door, is his name Tyler? My pulse didn't spike. It's settled. Yes, I said. You know him. Long pause. We dated for 3 years, she said. He moved here without telling me. Blocked me everywhere. I've been trying to find him. I leaned back in my chair. And in that moment, the situation stopped being painful and started being clear. I didn't interrupt her. That's something I've learned over the years. When people start explaining themselves without being asked, it's because they're revealing more than they intend to. I know how this sounds, Ashley continued quickly, as if bracing for judgment, but what we had was real. He just panicked. Commitment scared him. I know if we're in the same place again, he'll remember. Her voice wasn't shaky, not emotional in a fragile way. It was certain. Conviction without evidence. I closed my eyes for half a second, then opened them again. And you wanted to buy my house, I said slowly, to be near your ex-boyfriend. I want to buy your house because it's in a good neighborhood, she replied. And yes, it happens to be next door to someone I care about. The justification slid off her tongue smoothly. Practiced. What's your budget? I asked. Full asking price, she said immediately. Cash. No inspection. Close in 2 weeks. Cash. No inspection. 2 weeks. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. Not panic, not excitement. Recognition. Ashley, I said. Can I call you back in an hour? Of course, she replied, relieved. Take your time. I hung up and did what any reasonable woman would do. I looked her up. Her social media told a story she didn't. Photos of her and Tyler going back years. Smiling, traveling, intertwined. On his page, the posts stopped 2 years ago. On hers, they didn't. Old photos reposted like they were recent. Captions that spoke in present tense. Miss my favorite person. Some connections don't fade. Comments from friends beneath them. Girl, this isn't healthy. You deserve someone who chooses you. One post from 6 months earlier caught my eye. Sometimes love means giving someone space, even when it hurts. He'll come back. They always do. I sat back in my chair. So Tyler hadn't just moved next door to my husband. He'd moved across the country to escape her. And now she'd found him. When I called her back, I was careful. I need to be straight with you, I said. Are you planning to use this house to be close to Tyler? I'm planning to live my life, she replied. If he happens to be nearby, that's fate. He might not see it that way. That's between me and him. I thought about my husband, about the lies, the notes, the way he'd wanted Tyler close enough to touch through a fence. Okay, I said. Here's what I'll do. You submit the cash offer at asking. I'll accept it. Her breath caught. Really? There's something you should know first, I added calmly. My husband is friends with Tyler. They're close. You'll probably see them together. Silence. Then her voice changed, sharper, colder. How close? They're neighbors, I said. What do you think? A pause, long this time. My offer stands, she said finally. That night, I told my husband we had an offer. Already? He asked. From who? Cash buyer, I replied. Wants to close fast. It's clean. What about the other offers? This one's better. He sulked, but he signed. Didn't ask who the buyer was. 2 days later, Tyler knocked on the door. Can we talk? He asked. Sure, I said. Is it true you're selling to a woman named Ashley? I raised an eyebrow. Yes. That's my ex, he said urgently. She's not stable. That's why I moved here. You can't sell to her. I looked at him evenly. Maybe, I said, you should move again. The realization hit him slowly, like a bruise blooming under the skin. You're doing this on purpose, he said. I'm selling my house to a legitimate buyer, I replied. What happens after that isn't my problem. What about your husband? He wanted to stay in this neighborhood, I said. He still can, just not in my house. Tyler's face went pale. Divorce, I added. I filed last week. He didn't speak after that. Neither did I. Some reactions don't need words. The paperwork moved faster than my marriage ever had. Once the offer was accepted, everything else became logistics. Emails, signatures, timelines. I handled it all. My husband didn't argue anymore. He didn't fight. He withdrew. Men often do that when control slips out of their hands. Not explosive rage, but sullen silence. Passive resistance. He told people I was being cruel, that I was forcing him out of his home, that I was overreacting, that I was making things bigger than they were. His mother called again. You're tearing his life apart, she said, her voice tight with accusation. I'm responding to his choices, I replied evenly. You don't just sell a house because of feelings. I'm not, I said. I'm selling it because of behavior. She didn't have a response for that. The neighborhood noticed the tension immediately. Suburbs thrive on quiet routines. Disruption spreads fast. People waved less. Conversations shortened. The for sale sign became a symbol of instability, of gossip. My husband leaned into the victim role. He told friends I was controlling, that I monitored him, that I didn't trust him. Some of them believed him, at first, until I asked them the same question I'd asked everyone else. Would you be okay if your husband was secretly passing notes with his ex-girlfriend through a fence? That usually ended the conversation. The realtor called midweek. We have 6 offers, she said, 3 above asking. I reviewed them calmly, methodically. Then Ashley's came in, exactly as promised. Cash, no inspection, 2-week close. Clean. That's the word everyone used. My husband signed this final acceptance without reading it closely. He was distracted, his phone lighting up constantly, his mood shifting by the hour. I didn't ask who he was texting. I already knew. 2 days later, Tyler showed up again. This time he didn't knock. He stood on the porch until I opened the door. She's already packing, he said, breath tight. She told me she bought the house. Yes, I replied. You can't let this happen. I already have. She's been leaving notes on my car, he said. Showing up places, acting like we're back together. That must be uncomfortable, I said calmly. You're doing this to punish me. No, I replied. I'm letting consequences line up naturally. He stared at me, jaw tight. Your husband doesn't get a say? He had a say, I said. He used it when he chose to lie. That night, my husband finally cracked. Not with tears, not with remorse, but with anger. You're ruining everything, he snapped. She's insane. Tyler's freaking out. This is a mess. You created the mess, I said. I'm just not cleaning it up for you. She showed up at the apartment we're renting, he added, pacing. Asked questions. Wanted to know if we were still together. And? I asked. I told her to leave. Good, I said. That's a start. He stopped pacing. This is your fault. I met his eyes. No, this is what happens when you want someone close enough to touch, but forget they come with a past. The closing day arrived quietly. Ashley showed up in person, confident, curated, smiling like the universe had finally aligned in her favor. She talked about energy, manifestation, second chances. This house feels right, she said, signing the paperwork, like it was meant for me. I didn't disagree. My husband didn't attend. His lawyer signed on his behalf. Afterward, Ashley lingered. So you're really divorcing? She asked. Yes, I replied. Because of Tyler? Because of lies, I corrected. Tyler was just the catalyst. She nodded thoughtfully. If someone wants their ex that badly, they should be together. Let them deal with the reality of it. Despite everything, I believe she meant that. The fallout didn't wait. The neighborhood Facebook group lit up within days. First post from Tyler. Does anyone know the rules about gifts being left on your porch? I keep finding things I didn't order. Comments followed. That's sweet. New neighbor being friendly. Then Ashley commented, just being neighborly. Hope you like the cookies. Another neighbor asked, wait, do you two know each other? Ashley replied, we go way back. So happy to reconnect. Tyler didn't respond. A week later, another post. Serious question. What are the rules on security cameras facing neighboring property? Debate exploded in the comments. Ashley chimed in again. I'm installing cameras too. Can never be too careful. I watched all of it from my new apartment across town, phone in hand, heart steady. Then came the group chat. Tyler, my husband, several neighbors. It was supposed to be about safety. It became something else. She's outside every time I am, Tyler typed. She asks me about you constantly, my husband replied. I've called the cops twice, Tyler added. They say she's not doing anything illegal. Someone suggested talking to her. I tried, Tyler wrote. She acts like we're still together. My husband typed, can't you get a restraining order? Not enough evidence, Tyler replied. She hasn't threatened me. I didn't say a word. Then Tyler posted in the main group. I'm selling my house. Willing to negotiate for a quick sale. Ashley commented immediately. Why? I just moved here. We just reconnected. Tyler replied, we're not together. We're taking a break, Ashley wrote. That's different. The thread disappeared minutes later. Screenshots didn't. The escalation was complete. No yelling, no violence. Just two people trapped by proximity, watched constantly by someone who wouldn't let go. And my husband? He still lived in the apartment he insisted on, to stay in the same school district, the same neighborhood, the same orbit. Close enough to see everything. Too close to escape any of it. The quiet after escalation is different from peace. It's heavier, the kind that presses against your chest when you wake up and realize there's nothing left to fix, only things left to endure. My husband stopped pretending things would go back to normal. He didn't argue anymore. He didn't plead. He moved through the days like someone waiting for an outcome he could no longer influence. The apartment felt temporary in the worst way. Boxes half unpacked, furniture arranged without care. He insisted on staying close. Same school district, same neighborhood, like proximity alone might undo what he'd already set in motion. It didn't. Ashley started appearing everywhere. Not dramatically, not aggressively, just consistently. Coffee shop? She was there. Grocery store? She walked past, smiling like it was coincidence. Restaurant 2 towns over? She posted a story from the same place 30 minutes later. Tyler's social media changed first. Weight gain, dark circles, posts stopped altogether. My husband noticed it too, said nothing, but his jaw tightened every time another neighborhood screenshot surfaced. One night he finally spoke. She won't leave him alone, he said flatly, staring at the wall. He can't sit on his porch without her coming outside. I didn't respond. She introduced herself to his friends, he continued. Stays too long. Acts like she belongs. That must be uncomfortable, I said quietly. He looked at me then, really looked. For the first time in weeks, his voice dropped. I didn't think it would go this far. That was the closest thing to regret he ever offered. The worst part wasn't Ashley. It was the realization settling in my bones that this was what he wanted, just not like this. He wanted Tyler close, familiar, accessible. He just hadn't accounted for what came with that closeness. People don't come alone. They bring history. They bring consequences. Tyler tried to get a restraining order. It was denied. The judge said she hadn't threatened him. She hadn't trespassed. She was living her life in her own home. My husband tried to file harassment charges on Tyler's behalf. Also denied. They were trapped. And slowly, without ceremony, my husband drifted back toward him. Not romantically, not openly, but in proximity. Shared stress, mutual frustration. Late-night conversations about what they should do next. The notes through the fence didn't return, but the bond never really left. Then the photos appeared. Friends tagged them together. Casual dinners. Hands close, but not touching. 6 weeks after I moved out, it became official. They were together. I heard it through mutual acquaintances. No announcement, no celebration. Just confirmation whispered like gossip that had lost its shine. You'd think that would have broken me. It didn't. What broke something in me happened later. I saw a photo of them walking through the neighborhood together. My husband looked exhausted, shoulders slumped, eyes dull. Tyler looked worse, thinner face, tension etched deep into his jaw. Behind them, reflected faintly in a window. Ashley, watching, always watching. They couldn't hold hands outside, couldn't sit on the porch, couldn't have friends over without Ashley joining, lingering, asking questions she had no right to ask. Where do you work again? What time do you get home? Are you seeing anyone else? She asked like she was entitled to the answers. My husband called me one last time. She showed up at the apartment, he said. Asked if we were still together. And? I asked. I told her to leave. That's good, I replied. Silence stretched between us. This is your fault, he said finally. Quiet, tired, not angry anymore. I closed my eyes. No, I said. This is what happens when you want two lives at once. He hung up. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, lights off, city sounds humming outside. My hands didn't shake. My breath stayed even. But for the first time since this began, the weight hit me fully. The marriage was over. The illusion was gone. And the people who had betrayed it were now trapped inside the very situation they'd tried to create, without me cushioning the fall. I didn't feel victorious. I felt done. And sometimes that's the darkest moment of all. The shift didn't come with a confrontation. There was no final argument, no dramatic confession, no apology that landed too late. The turning point came quietly, when I realized I no longer felt responsible for what was happening to them. That's how power comes back sometimes. Not through force, but through release. The divorce proceedings moved forward without fireworks. My lawyer did the talking. I provided documentation, dates, messages, notes. Nothing explicit, nothing scandalous enough to feel cinematic. Just patterns. Secrecy. Deception. Enough. My husband tried to argue emotional distress, claimed I'd forced the sale, claimed I'd manipulated the situation. The judge wasn't interested. You signed the paperwork, she said flatly. The buyer is irrelevant. He got the apartment I'd been paying for during separation, his car, his personal belongings. I kept my retirement accounts, my car, and the proceeds from the house sale, minus his portion of equity, which turned out to be far less than he expected once the mortgage cleared. It wasn't a win. It was a conclusion. The real turning point came from the neighborhood, not from me. Tyler posted again, weeks later. Does anyone know the legal threshold for restraining orders? The comments were different this time. Less sympathy, more concern. People had noticed the patterns, the timing, the way Ashley appeared everywhere without explanation. Someone commented, "This doesn't sound healthy." Ashley replied with heart emojis. Then, one afternoon, I received a message from my ex-mother-in-law. She didn't bother with pleasantries. You did this on purpose, she said. I sold my house, I replied. What happened after that wasn't up to me. You ruined my daughter's life. I paused, not because I was unsure, but because I chose my words carefully. No, I said. Your son ruined his own life when he decided honesty was optional. She hung up. That was the moment I felt it fully, the detachment. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't defensive. I wasn't explaining myself to people who had already decided who I was supposed to be. I was free. Tyler messaged me once, weeks later. I know you did this on purpose. I get it now. I didn't reply. Some lessons don't need acknowledgement. The neighborhood situation deteriorated further. Tyler tried to sell. Listed his house for $20,000 under what he'd paid. No offers. Everyone knew. No one wanted to inherit that situation. Ashley stayed. Posted about patience. About fate. About love requiring endurance. My husband stayed too. Trapped by finances, by pride, by the very proximity he'd insisted on. They were together now, officially. But they couldn't live like it. And I wasn't part of that story anymore. I moved on quietly. A small apartment downtown. Shorter commute. Fewer memories. I took a pottery class. Something grounding. Tactile. Clay doesn't lie. If you push too hard, it collapses. If you rush it, it warps. There's a lesson in that. I went on a few dates. Nothing serious. No urgency. I wasn't trying to replace anything. I was learning what it felt like to choose again without compromise. One night, a friend asked me if I regretted selling the house to Ashley. I didn't answer right away. Then I said the truth. No, not because it hurt them, but because it showed them. My husband wanted his ex close. He got him. Tyler wanted escape without consequence. He lost it. Ashley wanted proximity disguised as fate. She got permanence. And I wanted peace. I finally had it. Consequences don't always arrive loudly. Sometimes they settle in, day after day, until the people who caused them can't remember what it felt like before. The neighborhood became a pressure cooker. Tyler didn't move, not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't. Selling a house you just bought at a loss isn't easy, especially when everyone knows why you're selling. He listed at $20,000 under what he paid. Still no takers. Ashley stayed. She didn't escalate, she didn't threaten, she didn't break the law. She simply existed, everywhere Tyler and my husband were. Every morning, every errand, every attempt at normalcy. She left gifts on porches, commented on posts, showed up smiling, uninvited, impossible to confront without looking unreasonable. When police were called, they shrugged. Nothing illegal, just uncomfortable. My husband tried to play mediator at first. He told himself he could manage it, set boundaries, smooth things over, keep the peace. Men often think control is something you can negotiate back once it slips. He was wrong. Ashley asked questions constantly. What time do you come home? Where do you work now? Are you seeing anyone else? She asked like she had the right to know. They stopped going out together, then stopped going out at all. When friends visited, Ashley introduced herself and stayed too long. When they sat on the porch, she came outside. When they closed the blinds, she installed cameras. Tyler tried for a restraining order again. Denied. Ashley's lawyer argued she was simply living her life in her own home. The judge agreed. My husband attempted harassment charges on Tyler's behalf, also denied. They were trapped by geography, by choices, by a situation that looked harmless on paper but suffocating in practice. The neighborhood Facebook group turned quieter, less chatter, more private messages. People didn't ask questions anymore. They already knew. Then came the exhaustion. Photos circulated, mutual friends tagging them at events. Tyler's weight gain was noticeable now. Dark circles under his eyes. My husband looked worn down, older somehow, like stress had settled into his posture. They couldn't hold hands outside without being watched. Couldn't sit together without Ashley appearing in the background of photos, sometimes unintentionally, sometimes not. She posted on Instagram. Sometimes love requires patience. Every day closer to him is a gift. The comments beneath were concerned now. This doesn't sound healthy. Please take care of yourself. She replied with heart emojis. My ex-mother-in-law called one final time. He's moving because of what you did, she said, voice strained. He's moving because someone who won't respect boundaries found him, I replied. That wasn't my decision. You've destroyed everything. No, I said calmly. I stopped protecting him from the consequences. She didn't call again. My husband reached out once more too, late at night, message short. I didn't think it would end like this. I read it. I didn't respond. Some realizations come too late to deserve comfort. Weeks passed, then months. The apartment my husband insisted on, close to the neighborhood, close to Tyler, became a financial trap. Rent increased. His lease was ending. Everything nearby was either too expensive or too far from work. Ashley remained. Tyler remained. And they remained together, officially, technically, publicly. But never freely. The notes through the fence had stopped long ago. Now there were cameras, and that was the cruel symmetry of it all. What started as secrecy, quiet exchanges, hidden intentions, ended in constant visibility. No privacy, no escape, no space to pretend things were innocent anymore. I watched all of it from a distance, not with satisfaction, with clarity. Because fallout isn't about punishment. It's about reality finally catching up. And once it does, there's no undoing it, only learning to live inside the result. 3 months after everything settled into its final shape, I realized something quietly, without ceremony. I was okay. Not euphoric, not triumphant, just steady. The divorce finalized without drama. Papers signed. Assets divided. He got his share, about $40,000 after the mortgage, fees, and legal costs. Less than he'd imagined. Gone faster than he expected. Credit card debt. I hadn't known about, swallowed most of it. I kept what mattered. My retirement accounts, my independence, my dignity. I ran into a mutual friend one afternoon. We made small talk, careful at first, then honest. They're still together, she said, but it's hard. Everyone sees it. I nodded. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. The neighborhood situation hadn't improved. Tyler never managed to sell. Ashley never left. Remembering someone's past doesn't mean you're prepared to live inside it. My ex-husband stayed close, too close. He wanted familiarity without responsibility, connection without cost. What he got instead was permanence without peace. And here's the part people get wrong. I didn't do this out of revenge. I didn't sell the house to hurt anyone. I didn't orchestrate suffering. I didn't play games. I made one decision. I stopped cushioning other people from the consequences of their choices. My husband chose secrecy. Tyler chose proximity. Ashley chose obsession, disguised as fate. I chose clarity. That's the lesson no one wants to hear when they're halfway out the door of a bad decision. Clarity doesn't shout, it waits. And when it arrives, it doesn't negotiate. I sleep well now. I wake up in a place that's mine, not haunted by whispers through fences or half-truths passed like notes. I don't check who's watching. I don't wonder what's happening next door. Sometimes that's the real ending. Not justice, not punishment, not redemption. Just peace. And the understanding that when someone shows you who they are, you don't have to fight them. You just have to stop standing in the way of their choices. They'll take care of the rest. If you stayed with me until the end, thank you. Stories like this aren't really about houses, neighbors, signs, or even betrayal. They're about the moment you stop negotiating with someone else's choices and start choosing yourself. Sometimes the hardest lesson isn't learning to let go. It's realizing you don't need closure from people who never told you the truth in the first place. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been put in a position where silence was mistaken for permission, know this: walking away isn't weakness, it's clarity. Thank you to everyone who's shared their own experiences in the comments. You're not alone, even when it feels like you are. If you found value in this story, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. It helps us keep telling these slow burn, real life stories, ones that don't rush healing and don't glamorize pain. Take care of yourself, choose peace, and I'll see you in the next story.